Captain Elena Vasquez stared through the viewport of her ship, the Earth's Hope, at the massive alien structure floating in space before them. It was bigger than any city she had ever seen. Towers twisted and curved in impossible ways, covered in lights that pulsed with colors that had no names in any human language. This was their destination after 18 months of travel through the dark emptiness between stars. "First contact protocol is now active," announced Lieutenant Kim from the navigation station. His voice was steady, but Elena could hear the nervousness underneath. They were all nervous. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, but now that it was here, none of them knew what to expect. Elena straightened her uniform and checked her appearance one last time. She represented not just Earth, but every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Today, they would get their answer. The alien station was called Nexus Prime, according to the signals they had intercepted. Served as the diplomatic center for something called the Galactic Consortium. From what they could understand, the consortium was a group of 12 different alien species that controlled most of the galaxy. They had been watching Earth for decades, waiting to see if humans would develop faster than light travel on their own. Elena's team had finally cracked that puzzle 3 years ago. Dr. Sarah Chun had figured out how to fold space using quantum mechanics that even she barely understood. The first test flight had taken them to Alpha Centauri and back in just 2 weeks. The second test had detected the alien signals. The third test had brought them here. A soft chime echoed through the bridge. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Martinez. "They're requesting permission to bring us aboard their station." Elena nodded. "Accept their invitation. Tell them we're ready." The docking process was unlike anything in human experience. Instead of physical clamps and airlocks, the alien station simply surrounded their ship with a glowing field that gently pulled them inside. Elena felt a slight, tingling sensation as they passed through what looked like a wall of water, but was actually some kind of energy barrier. Inside the station, artificial gravity took hold of their ship. Elena could see through the viewport that they were in a massive chamber filled with dozens of other ships. Some looked like metal insects with too many legs. Others were smooth and round like pearls. A few seemed to be made of crystal that caught and reflected light in beautiful patterns. None of them looked anything like human ships. "Captain," Martinez said, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm reading life signs from at least 15 different species in this chamber alone." Elena felt her heart race. 15 different alien species in one place. Earth had spent so long wondering if they were alone, and here was proof that the galaxy was crowded with intelligent life. A soft sound came from the ship's speakers. It was like music, but with mathematical precision that made Elena think of computer code. Then the sound changed, became words in perfect English. "Welcome, representatives of the species known as humans. Please prepare for escort to the council chamber. You will be meeting with the Prime Arbiter of the Galactic Consortium." Elena gathered her team. Dr. Chin would provide scientific expertise. Lieutenant Kim would handle military protocols. Martinez would manage communications. And Elena would do the talking. They had practiced this moment hundreds of times during the long journey to Nexus Prime. The escort turned out to be a floating platform operated by a creature that looked like a tall, thin human covered in blue scales. It had 4 arms and eyes that were completely black. When it spoke, its voice was the same mathematical music they had heard on the ship. "I am Guide Zeril," it said. "I will take you to meet the Prime Arbiter. Please follow safety protocols and do not touch any surfaces," marked with red symbols. The journey through the station was overwhelming. The corridors were vast, with ceilings that disappeared into darkness above. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved through the halls. Some walked on legs like humans. Others floated through the air. A few seemed to phase in and out of existence as Elena watched. "My God," whispered Dr. Chun. "The technology here is thousands of years ahead of ours." Guide Zero's head turned toward them. "The consortium has existed for 8,000 of your years. We have learned much about the efficient use of resources and energy. Elena noticed something in the creature's tone. Not pride, exactly, but a kind of casual dismissal, like someone explaining simple concepts to a child. The council chamber was a circular room with a domed ceiling that showed real-time images of space outside the station. 12 seats were arranged in a circle, each designed for a different type of alien body. 11 of them were occupied. The Prime Arbiter sat in the center. It was humanoid but taller than any human, with skin that looked like polished metal and eyes that glowed with their own light. When it spoke, its voice filled the room without seeming loud. I am Prime Arbiter Velox of the Consortium Council. You are the delegation from the planet called Earth in the Sol System. Elena stepped forward. Yes, honored Arbiter. I am Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Space Command. We come seeking peaceful contact and mutual understanding. The Arbiter's glowing eyes fixed on her. Peaceful contact has already been achieved. You are here, and you are not dead. As for mutual understanding, that will depend on your species' willingness to accept reality. What reality is that? Elena asked. The reality that you are newcomers to a galaxy that already has established order. The Consortium maintains peace and stability among member species. We have observed your kind for several decades. You show promise, but you are not ready for full membership. Dr. Chin stepped closer to Elena. What would full membership require? Another creature at the council table spoke up. This one looked like a giant insect with transparent wings. Full membership requires technological sophistication, cultural stability, and military capability that your species does not possess. Elena felt a flash of anger but kept her voice calm. What are you offering instead? Prime Arbiter Velox gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed a small, rocky planet orbiting a red star. Mining rights to the world designated as Kepler 442c. You may establish one colony there. Population limit 50,000 individuals. That's all. Lieutenant Kim asked before Elena could stop him. The Arbiter's glowing eyes turned to Kim. You will also receive basic trade agreements. You may exchange raw materials for consortium technology. Food production equipment, basic medical supplies, and atmospheric processors. Elena studied the holographic planet. It looked dead and lifeless. What are the restrictions? You will not reverse engineer consortium technology. You will not establish colonies outside of Kepler 442c without permission. You will not develop military capabilities beyond what is necessary for colony defense. Dr. Chin whispered to Elena, they're offering us scraps. One dead world and trade agreements that keep us dependent on them. Elena looked around the council chamber at the 11 alien representatives. Some watched her with what might have been curiosity. Others seemed bored, as if this meeting was just another routine task. This is your standard offer to new species? Elena asked. It is our offer to species that show potential but lack maturity, the Arbiter replied. Many species have thrived under consortium guidance. The Zelthan miners on Kepler 442c have been productive for over 2 centuries. The Zelthan miners? Elena asked. The previous occupants of the world. They have adapted well to their role in consortium society. Something cold settled in Elena's stomach. What happened to their homeworld? It became unnecessary once they found their proper place in the galactic order. Elena looked at her team. Dr. Chan's face was pale. Lieutenant Kim's jaw was tight with anger. Martinez was staring. At the floor, Prime Arbiter Velox stood up. You have 1 standard day to consider our offer. We believe it is generous, considering your species' current limitations, and if we refuse? Elena asked. The Arbiter's glowing eyes dimmed slightly. No species has ever refused. The galaxy is large and dangerous for those without protection. Independence is an illusion that young species often hold until reality teaches them otherwise. Elena felt every eye in the chamber focused on her. This was the moment that would define humanity's future among the stars. Accept the offer, and humans would become just another subject species in the consortium's empire. Refuse, and they would face the unknown dangers of a hostile galaxy alone. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had sent her here with hope and trust, about the generations of humans who had looked up at the stars and dreamed of walking among them as equals, not as servants. Elena straightened her shoulders and looked directly into the Prime Arbiter's glowing eyes. We'll need to discuss this among ourselves, she said, but in her heart she already knew what humanity's answer would be. Elena stood in the small quarters assigned to the human delegation aboard Nexus Prime. The room was clean and functional, but everything about it felt wrong. The walls curved in ways that made her eyes hurt, and the gravity felt slightly off, like being on a ship that was always tilting just a little bit. Dr. Chun sat at a table that seemed to grow directly from the floor. Lieutenant Kim paced near the window that showed the endless blackness of space. Martinez was trying to get their communication equipment to work properly in the alien environment. They expect us to say yes, Kim said, his voice tight with anger. Did you see how they looked at us? Like we were children asking for candy, Elena nodded. She had seen it too. The boredom in some of the aliens' eyes. The dismissive way Prime Arbiter Velox had spoken. Worst of all was the casual mention of the Zelfin miners who had lost their homeworld and been turned into workers for the consortium. The offer is actually worse than it sounds, Dr. Chun said, looking up from her notes. One colony world with a population limit means they can control our growth. Trade agreements for raw materials means we become their suppliers, not their partners. And the restrictions on technology and military development ensure we can never challenge them. Martinez finally got their equipment working. I've been monitoring their communications. It's all automated translation, but I think I understand the basic structure. They have 12 member species, but from what I can tell, only 3 of them make real decisions. The others are just workers and soldiers. Elena walked to the window and looked out at the alien ships in the docking bay. Each one represented a species that had once been independent, that had once looked up at their own stars and dreamed of exploring the galaxy. Now they were all part of the consortium, following orders and staying in their assigned places. What if we say no? Kim asked. Then we find out how dangerous the galaxy really is, Elena replied. Chun pulled up a holographic display from her portable computer. I've been analyzing their technology while we've been here. The artificial gravity, the energy barriers, the translation systems. It's all incredibly advanced, but I think I understand some of the basic principles. Elena turned away from the window. Explain. Their gravity manipulation uses quantum field distortion. I think we could recreate something similar if we had enough time and resources. The energy barriers work on a frequency modulation system that might be vulnerable to specific interference patterns, and their translation system has to tap into our communication devices to work, which means it leaves traces we could study. Kim stopped pacing. Are you saying we could steal their technology? I'm saying we could learn from it, Chun corrected. There's a difference between stealing and understanding principles that we then develop in our own way. Elena felt something stir in her chest. Hope, maybe, or just stubborn human pride. How long would it take? Years, maybe decades. But humans have always been good at taking an idea and making it work better. A soft chime sounded in the room. Guide Zero's voice came from speakers hidden in the walls. The human delegation is requested in the council chamber. The Prime Arbiter wishes to hear your decision. Elena looked at her team. Chun's face was determined. Kim looked ready for a fight. Martinez was already packing up their equipment. These were good people, smart people. The kind of humans who had built rockets and computers and space stations with nothing but curiosity and determination. Whatever we decide in there, Elena said, we stick together. We speak with one voice. They made their way back through the twisting corridors of Nexus Prime. Elena noticed things she had missed before. The way the alien workers kept their eyes down when more important species passed by. The subtle differences in the technology different species were allowed to use. The guards stationed at certain doorways, watching everything. The council chamber looked exactly the same as before. The 12 seats arranged in their circle, 11 of them occupied by beings who had already decided humanity's fate. Prime Arbiter Velox stood as they entered. Captain Vasquez, the Arbiter said, Have you reached a decision regarding our offer? Elena walked to the center of the chamber. She could feel the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. This moment would be remembered for as long as humans existed, either as the day they accepted their place as servants or as the day they chose a different path. We have discussed your offer carefully, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. We understand the benefits you are providing and the protection you offer. Several of the Alien Council members leaned forward slightly. Prime Arbiter Velox's glowing eyes focused on her with what might have been satisfaction. However, Elena continued, we must respectfully decline. The silence that followed was absolute. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear Dr. Chun breathing beside her. She could hear the soft hum of the station systems. But from the 12 alien representatives, there was nothing. Finally, Prime Arbiter Velox spoke. I do not understand. You decline our offer of membership in the consortium? We decline your offer of supervised existence under consortium control, Elena said. We appreciate the opportunity to meet you and learn about galactic civilization. But humanity chooses to make its own way among the stars. The insect-like creature that had spoken before spread its transparent wings in what might have been shock. This is unprecedented. No species has ever refused consortium membership. Another alien, one that looked like a living tree with crystal formations growing from its bark, spoke up. The galaxy is dangerous for isolated species. Without consortium protection, your people will face threats you cannot imagine. Elena nodded. Maybe that's true. But we prefer dangerous freedom to safe slavery. Prime Arbiter Velox's metal skin darkened. Slavery? We offer guidance, protection, and prosperity to all member species. You offer servitude, Elena replied. Limited colonies, restricted technology, controlled trade, and no voice in your council except to say yes to whatever you decide. That's not membership, that's ownership. Kim stepped forward beside Elena. We've seen your protection. The Zelthan miners who lost their homeworld. How many other species have you guided out of existence? The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Some seemed angry, others confused. Elena caught fragments of translated speech. Unprecedented, dangerous, foolish, impossible. Prime Arbiter Velox raised one hand and the noise stopped immediately. You are making a mistake that will cost your species dearly. The consortium maintains order in this galaxy. Without our protection, you will face pirates, hostile empires, and worse. Your primitive technology and limited resources will not be enough. Elena looked around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. Some seemed genuinely concerned, others looked angry. A few appeared curious as if they had never seen anything like this before. Maybe we'll fail, Elena said. Maybe we'll face dangers we can't handle, but we'll face them as free beings making our own choices. That's worth the risk. Dr. Chun spoke up for the first time since entering the chamber. We've learned a lot just from being here. We've seen that faster-than-light travel is possible, that multiple species can coexist, that the galaxy is full of wonders we never imagined. That knowledge alone is worth the journey. The tree-like alien made a sound like wind through leaves. Knowledge without guidance leads to destruction. Young species always believe they can succeed where others have failed. Maybe, Elena said. Or maybe you've forgotten what it's like to try something new. How long has the consortium existed unchanged? 8,000 years? When was the last time any of you discovered something genuinely new instead of just managing what you already had? Prime Arbiter Velox's eyes blazed brighter. Our system has brought peace and stability to 12 species across thousands of worlds. It works. Elena smiled, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she felt truly confident. Your system has brought stagnation. Peace through control isn't peace. It's just fear with better marketing. She turned to address the entire council. We thank you for showing us what's possible out here. We thank you for the knowledge that we're not alone. But we don't need your permission to explore the galaxy, and we won't ask for it. Elena looked back at Prime Arbiter Velox. We're leaving now. We'll take our ship and return to human space. What you do after that is up to you. The Arbiter's voice was cold. If you leave consortium space, you will not be welcome to return. We will not rescue you when your ignorance leads to disaster. We will not trade with you or provide aid of any kind. We understand, Elena said. Furthermore, the Arbiter continued, we will inform all consortium members and allies that humanity has rejected galactic civilization. You will find no friends among the established powers. Elena shrugged. Then we'll make friends among the unestablished ones. She turned to her team. Let's go home. As they walked toward the chamber exit, Elena heard one of the alien council members whisper to another. The translation came through clearly. They're going to die out there. Elena paused at the doorway and looked back. Maybe, but we're going to live first. The journey back to their ship felt different than the walk to the council chamber. Elena noticed the alien workers watching them with something that might have been admiration. Or maybe hope. It was hard to. 2 years had passed since Captain Elena Vasquez had walked away from the consortium's offer. 2 years of the hardest work humanity had ever undertaken. Dr. Marcus Chun stood in his laboratory aboard the research station Darwin's Dream, staring at the quantum field generator he had just finished building. It was ugly compared to the smooth alien technology they had seen at Nexus Prime, where the consortium devices looked like art pieces made of light and energy. The human version was a mess of cables, metal plates, and warning labels. But it worked, and more importantly, it worked better than what the aliens had. Test 17 is ready, announced his assistant, Dr. Sarah Park. She was young, brilliant, and had spent the last 18 months figuring out how to make alien principles work with human engineering. Chen activated the device. The air shimmered, and suddenly a small asteroid appeared in the testing chamber. It had been floating in space 3,000 kilometers away just seconds before. The quantum field had folded space around it and brought it here instantly. Successful teleportation of a 2-ton object across 3,000 kilometers? Park sighed, checking her instruments. Power consumption is 30% less than our previous attempts. Chun smiled. The consortium's technology could do the same thing, but it required massive installations and enormous amounts of energy. The human version was crude but efficient. They had taken the basic idea and made it work with the tools they had. Send the data to Admiral Knox, Chun said. She wants to know that we can now move supply ships instantly across a star system. Admiral Sarah Knox received the message while standing on the bridge of the exploration ship New Horizons. Around her, the bridge crew worked at stations that mixed human technology with innovations based on consortium principles. They were exploring a star system that the aliens had dismissed as worthless. Too much radiation, too many asteroids, not enough useful planets. Admiral, called Navigation Officer Torres from her station, we're detecting structures on the third planet. They look artificial. Knox walked over to look at the sensor display. The planet below was a harsh world with a thin atmosphere and surface radiation that would kill most life forms in minutes. But the sensors showed clear signs of buildings, possibly even cities. Any life signs? Knox asked. Yes, ma'am. Faint, but definitely there. The radiation might be interfering with our readings, but I'd estimate maybe 10,000 individuals. Knox made a decision that would have horrified the consortium. Take us down. Launch the radiation-shielded landing craft. I want to make contact. The beings they found on the planet's surface were unlike anything in consortium records. They called themselves the Kef, and they looked like walking crystals that absorbed radiation instead of being harmed by it. They had been hiding on this poisonous world for 3 centuries, ever since the consortium had declared their home system a hazard zone and forbidden all ships from entering. The Kef leader, who communicated through colored light patterns that human computers quickly learned to translate, explained their situation. The metal skins came to our original world long ago. They said our radiation was dangerous to their precious empire. They moved us here and told us to stay hidden. We have been alone ever since. Knox felt anger building in her chest. The consortium hadn't just ignored these people. They had deliberately isolated them on a world that was poison to most species, but necessary for the Keth to survive. Would you like to join our alliance? Knox asked. We're building something new, something where every species has a voice. The Keth leader's crystalline body flashed with colors that the translator identified as surprise and hope. You would accept radiation eaters like us? You would not fear our presence? Fear you? Knox laughed. We're the species that just walked away from the biggest empire in the galaxy because we didn't like their rules. A little radiation doesn't scare us. 3 months later, Knox stood in a very different place. The Zelphin mining colony on Kepler 442c had been humanity's first military operation, and it had taught them valuable lessons about fighting the consortium. The Zelphins were a small, furry species that looked like a cross between rabbits and bears. For 200 years, they had been forced to mine rare metals for their consortium masters. They lived in underground tunnels, worked 16-hour shifts, and had never been allowed to see their children grow up because the young were taken away for education and training on other worlds. Commander Torres had led the rescue mission with 3 converted cargo ships and a crew of volunteers. The consortium guard post had been defended by automated systems and a small garrison of alien soldiers who had never faced an enemy that refused to follow standard combat rules. The trick, Torres explained to Knox as they watched Zelphin families reunite on the surface of their liberated world, was not to fight their battle. They expected us to come in with big ships and heavy weapons like civilized people. Instead, we came in small groups, hit multiple targets at once, and used their own systems against them. One of the guard post's own defensive turrets had been hacked by human engineers and used to destroy the consortium communication array. Another had been reprogrammed to target consortium ships instead of intruders. The alien soldiers had surrendered when they realized their own base was trying to kill them. What about the consortium fleet that was supposed to arrive as backup? Knox asked. Doc Norris grinned. Dr. Chun's new quantum field generators. We teleported their ship's engines 3 light years away while they were still attached to the ships. Took the aliens 6 hours to figure out why their vessels suddenly stopped working. A small Zelphin approached them, walking upright on 2 legs but moving with the quick, nervous energy of a prey animal. This was Keat, who had become the unofficial leader of the freed miners. Commander Torres, Admiral Knox, Keat said in heavily accented English. The Zelphins had learned human languages with surprising speed. We have received messages from our people on 17 other mining worlds. They want to know if the humans will help them too. Knox and Torres exchanged glances. 17 other worlds meant 17 other rescue missions. It meant openly declaring war on the consortium system. It meant putting human lives at risk for people they had never met. Tell them yes, Knox said. Over the following months, human ships appeared in star systems across the galaxy. Each mission was different. Each rescue operation required new tactics. The humans had learned something important. Every species that the consortium controlled was being held against their will, and most of them were eager to fight back if someone showed them how. The Vorthik were a warrior species that had been forced to serve as consortium soldiers for 5 centuries. When human ships arrived at their garrison world, the aliens expected a battle. Instead, they found Commander Kim broadcasting a simple message. The humans who rejected the consortium offer you the same choice. Fight for your freedom or keep taking orders forever. Half the Vorthik garrison switched sides immediately. The other half fled rather than fight their own people. The mycelians were a plant-based species that the consortium used as living computers, plugging their neural networks into complex calculations for 800 years. Dr. Chun's team showed them how to disconnect from the consortium systems and think for themselves again. The grateful mycelians shared biological technology that helped human ships heal damage automatically. Each species that joined the growing alliance brought new knowledge, new perspectives, and new reasons to resist consortium control. The humans had started with 3 ships and a few hundred volunteers. Now they commanded a fleet of 60 vessels crewed by 8 different species, but the consortium was finally taking notice. Admiral Knox stood in the command center of Haven Station. Humanity's first permanent base outside Earth's solar system. The station was built inside a massive asteroid in a system the consortium had marked as uninhabitable due to unpredictable gravity fluctuations. Humans had learned to use those fluctuations as a natural defense system. Admiral, called Communications, Officer Martinez, now promoted to lead the Alliance's intelligence division. We're intercepting consortium fleet movements. They're mobilizing forces from 12 different sectors. Knox studied the tactical display. Red dots showed consortium ships moving toward Alliance territory. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. The largest military force the consortium had assembled in centuries. How long before they reach our outer colonies? Knox asked. 6 weeks, assuming they don't use their fastest ships. If they push their engines to maximum, maybe 4 weeks, Knox nodded. They had always known this moment would come. The consortium had tolerated small raids and individual colony liberations because they thought humans were just another minor rebellion that would burn itself out. Now they understood that humanity was building something that threatened their entire system. Send a message to all Alliance worlds, Knox ordered. Tell them the war is about to begin. Tell them to prepare for the fight of their lives. Dr. Chin appeared on the command center's main screen, broadcasting from his laboratory. Admiral, we've just completed testing on the new defensive systems. The quantum field generators can now create stable barriers around entire planets. The Keth radiation weapons can pierce. The Battle of Kepler's Edge began at 0600 hours on a Tuesday that would be remembered for as long as humans existed. Admiral Sarah Knox stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship Defiance, watching as nearly 3,000 consortium ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Massive dreadnoughts that could crack planets floated alongside carriers filled with fighter craft. Energy weapons that could vaporize asteroids charged with power drawn from portable stars. The combined firepower facing the Alliance could have destroyed Earth's entire solar system in minutes against them. Humanity and their allies had brought 200 ships of various sizes and designs. Most were converted cargo vessels, mining platforms, and research ships armed with weapons that Dr. Chin's team had built in asteroid factories over the past 6 months. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Patel from the communications station, the consortium fleet is requesting our surrender. They're offering one final chance to accept their terms. Knox looked around the bridge at her crew. Humans, Zelthans, Keth, Vorthek, and 3 other species worked side by side at stations that mixed technology from 8 different worlds. 2 years ago, none of these people had ever met. Now they were preparing to fight together against impossible odds. Tell them we already gave our answer 2 years ago, Knox said. We're not interested in their terms. The first phase of the battle went exactly as the consortium expected. Their massive ships moved into formation and began bombarding Alliance positions with overwhelming firepower. Alliance vessels scattered, seemingly in panic, abandoning their defensive positions around the system's outer planets on the consortium. Command ship Prime Arbiter Velox watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans are running as we predicted. Their primitive ships cannot stand against proper military force. His tactical officer, a tall alien with skin like polished stone, nodded agreement. Our forces report minimal resistance. The Alliance fleet appears to be fleeing toward the system's inner planets. But Fleet Commander Thorax of the Vorthak, who had served the consortium for 5 centuries before defecting to the Alliance, was watching the same battle from a very different perspective. He stood beside Admiral Knox on the Defiance, his 4 arms working multiple control stations simultaneously. Phase 1 complete, Thorax reported. Consortium fleet has taken the bait. They're following our ships deeper into the system, exactly. As planned, Knox nodded. Maya, are the preparations ready? Dr. Maya Patel, who had become the Alliance's chief technology officer, looked up from her engineering station. All quantum field generators are in position. The Keth radiation emitters are charged, and the surprise is waiting. The consortium fleet pushed deeper into the Kepler system, chasing what they thought were fleeing Alliance ships. Their formation was perfect, their discipline absolute. 8,000 years of military tradition guided their every move, which was exactly what Admiral Knox had been counting on. Now, Knox said quietly, the trap that Dr. Chun and his team had spent months preparing sprang into action. Quantum field? Generators hidden throughout the asteroid belt activated simultaneously, creating a massive spatial distortion that cut the consortium fleet in half. Ships in the front found themselves suddenly separated from their support vessels by a barrier. That made faster-than-light communication impossible. At the same moment, the Alliance ships that had been fleeing suddenly reversed course. They had not been running away, they had been leading the consortium fleet into position. But the real surprise came from the Keth. The crystal beings who fed on radiation had spent weeks positioning themselves throughout the system in small, shielded ships that consortium sensors had dismissed as space debris. Now they activated weapons that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Instead of trying to punch through consortium shields with raw power, the Keth weapons converted the shields themselves into radiation sources. The more energy a consortium ship pumped into its defenses, the more deadly radiation it created inside its own hull. Consortium flagship is reporting shield failures across their entire front line, Patel announced, monitoring enemy communications. They're requesting emergency evacuation protocols. Knox smiled grimly. Tell Commander Torres to begin Phase 2. Commander Torres had been waiting for this moment aboard a converted mining ship called the Earthbreaker. Unlike the sleek Alliance warships, the Earthbreaker looked like exactly what it was, a rough, ugly vessel designed to break apart asteroids and haul raw materials, but Dr. Chun had made some modifications. The Earthbreaker and 50 ships like it suddenly appeared in the middle of the consortium formation, having been teleported there by quantum field generators. Each ship immediately began deploying a weapon that no military strategist in galactic history had ever considered. They started mining the enemy. Fleet. Industrial cutting beams designed to slice through solid rock began carving into consortium ship hulls. Gravity manipulators built to move asteroids started tearing weapon systems off enemy vessels. Cargo haulers that could carry entire mountains began literally stealing consortium ships by wrapping them in tractor fields and dragging them away. This is impossible, Prime Arbiter Velox said, watching his tactical display show ships disappearing from his fleet. They're using mining equipment as weapons. His tactical officer was frantically trying to coordinate a response. Sir, our weapons are designed to fight other warships. We have no protocols for dealing with industrial equipment used offensively. The consortium had built their entire military doctrine around the idea that warfare was a civilized activity, conducted by professional soldiers using proper weapons in predictable patterns. They had never imagined facing an enemy that would use construction equipment, mining tools, and garbage haulers as instruments of war. While the mining ships caused chaos in the consortium formation, the Alliance warships struck with precision. Each vessel had been designed for a specific task, using principles learned from studying 8 different species approaches to combat. Zelfin ships were small and fast, designed to dart between larger vessels and plant explosive charges. Vorthak vessels focused on disrupting enemy communications and command structures. Mycelian ships used biological weapons that could take over enemy computer systems. Human ships adapted constantly, changing tactics as the battle evolved. Dr. Chun watched the battle from his command post aboard the research vessel Discovery. He was not a military man, but his job was to coordinate the Alliance's technological advantages. So far, everything was working better than he had dared hope. Quantum field generators are holding stable, reported his assistant. The spatial barrier is keeping the consortium rearguard from supporting their front line. What about our secret weapon? Chun asked. Wormhole generator is charging. Estimated time to full power, 40 minutes, Chun nodded. The wormhole generator was their ultimate gamble. If it worked, they could open a portal directly to the consortium's home system and strike at the heart of their empire. If it failed, It might destroy everyone within 10 light-years, but the battle was not going entirely in the Alliance's favor. The Consortium had numbers, experience, and weapons that could crack planets. As the initial shock of the Alliance tactics wore off, the aliens began adapting their strategies. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Commander Patel, "Consortium forces are regrouping. They're targeting our quantum field generators." Knox watched as massive dreadnoughts began focusing their fire on the hidden generators that maintained the spatial barriers. The Alliance had always known the traps would not hold forever. "Time for Phase 3, Knox announced. "All ships implement the Shun Protocol." The Shun Protocol was the most dangerous tactical innovation humanity had developed. Instead of trying to maintain formation or protect specific positions, every Alliance ship would operate independently, using random tactics and constantly changing objectives. To military minds trained in 8,000 years of disciplined warfare, it looked like complete chaos. Ships attacked targets that made no strategic sense. Formations dissolved and reformed with no apparent logic. The entire Alliance fleet seemed to have lost all coordination, but there was a method to the madness. Each ship was following simple rules: stay mobile, strike at weakness, adapt constantly, and never do what the enemy expects. It was how humans had always fought when facing superior forces, not as a disciplined army, but as a swarm of individuals united only by shared purpose. The Consortium fleet, despite its size and power, began to break apart. Their commanders could not predict where the next attack would come from or what form it would take. Their weapons, designed to fight conventional battles, struggled to track targets that moved in completely unpredictable patterns. "Sir," the Consortium tactical officer reported to Prime Arbiter Velox, "we've lost 17% of our fleet. Our formation integrity has collapsed. The enemy appears to be using no recognizable tactical doctrine." Velox stared at the tactical display, watching red dots representing his ships wink out one by one. "How can they fight without tactics?" "I don't think they are fighting without tactics, sir. I think they're using tactics we don't understand." The Consortium capital world of Nexus Prime had not seen a hostile fleet in its skies for over 6,000 years. The massive orbital stations that surrounded the planet were designed for ceremony and administration, not defense. When Alliance ships began pouring through the wormhole portal, the ancient defense systems tried to activate but found their targeting computers completely confused by the chaotic Alliance formations. Admiral Sarah Knox stood on the bridge of the Defiance as it emerged from the portal into the Consortium home system. Around her, 200 Alliance ships spread out in the unpredictable patterns that had worked so well at Kepler's Edge. But this time, they were not attacking military targets. "All ships, remember the objective," Knox broadcast to the Alliance fleet. "We're here to end a war, not start a massacre. Target only military installations and government facilities. Avoid civilian populations." Dr. Maya Patel looked up from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender signals from 12 orbital platforms. The Consortium defense fleet is requesting permission to withdraw." Knox nodded. The Alliance had not come here to conquer the Consortium capital. They had come to prove a point that could not be ignored. By appearing in the heart of the enemy empire, they had demonstrated that the old order was finished. "Accept their withdrawal," Knox said. "But keep our weapons trained on the Central Command Station. That's where we need to go." The Central Command Station was the same structure where Captain Elena Vasquez had first met Prime Arbiter Velox 2 years ago. It floated in space above the capital planet, a massive construction of twisted towers and impossible architecture that had served as the seat of galactic government for 8 millennia, but now Alliance ships surrounded it, and the station's own defenses had been turned off to prevent further bloodshed. Knox took a shuttle from the Defiance to the command station, just as Vasquez had done 2 years before. But this time, she was not arriving as a supplicant hoping for acceptance. She was arriving as the representative of a force that had just shattered the most powerful empire in galactic history. The same guide who had escorted the human delegation before, the blue-scaled creature called Zeral, met Knox at the docking bay. But now its forearms trembled slightly, and its black eyes showed something that might have been fear. "Admiral Knox," Zeril said, "the Prime Arbiter is waiting for you in the council chamber." Knox walked through the same corridors that Elena Vasquez had traveled 2 years ago, but everything was different now. The alien workers who had once kept their eyes down when important species passed by now watched Knox with open curiosity. Some even nodded respectfully as she passed. The council chamber looked smaller than Knox had expected from the historical records. The 12 seats arranged in their circle seemed almost pathetic now that she understood how the system really worked. Only 3 species had ever made real decisions. The other 9 had just been there to provide the illusion of representation. Prime Arbiter Velox sat alone in the center of the chamber. His metal skin had lost its shine and his glowing eyes were dim. The other 11 seats were empty. The council members had fled when the Alliance fleet arrived. "Admiral Knox," Velox said, his voice lacking the commanding tone Knox had heard in the recordings. "You have achieved what no species in galactic history has accomplished. You have brought war to the heart of the consortium." Knox walked to the center of the chamber, to the exact spot where Elena Vasquez had stood when she rejected the consortium's offer. "We didn't bring war here. We brought the consequences of your choices." Velox's glowing eyes focused on her. "You have destroyed an empire that maintained peace for 8,000 years. "You maintained control," Knox corrected, "not peace. Real peace doesn't require keeping entire species as slaves." She gestured around the empty chamber. "Where are your council members? Where are the representatives of the 12 species that supposedly made up your government?" Velox was silent for a long moment. "They have chosen to pursue other opportunities." Knox laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They abandoned you the moment they realized your empire was finished. Just like you abandoned every species that ever needed help." The chamber's communication system activated, and Dr. Chun's voice filled the room. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from consortium forces throughout the galaxy. The fleet at Kepler's Edge has withdrawn. Colonial governors on 200 worlds are asking for terms." Knox nodded. "What about the member species?" "That's the interesting part," Chun replied. "Most of them are declaring independence. The Vorthek military has split into 3 separate factions. The Mycelian computer networks are shutting down all consortium administrative systems. Even the species we never made contact with are breaking away." Knox looked at Prime Arbiter Velox, whose metal skin had turned almost gray. 8,000 years of empire, and it fell apart in 2 days. "Do you know why?" Velox did not answer. "Because it was never really an empire," Knox continued. "It was a protection racket. You convinced everyone that they needed you to survive, but you never let them grow strong enough to protect themselves. The moment someone proved that the consortium could be beaten, everyone realized they didn't need you anymore." Commander Torres entered the chamber, escorting a group of beings that Knox recognized from the Alliance's liberation missions. Keet of the Zelthans walked beside Rashek of the Keth, while Thorax represented the Vorthek rebels. Behind them came representatives of 5 other species that had joined the Alliance. "Admiral," Torres said, "the new Galactic Council is ready to convene." Knox turned away from Velox and addressed the assembled representatives. "The consortium is finished. The question now is what we build to replace it." Keet stepped forward, his rabbit-like features showing an emotion that Knox had never seen in the 2 years since his people's liberation. "Hope. What are you proposing, Admiral?" "A real council," Knox said, "where every species has an equal voice. Where decisions are made by consensus, not by decree. Where no one species gets to decide the fate of others." Rashek, the crystal being whose people fed on radiation, flashed with colors that the translators identified as cautious optimism. "And what role would humans play in this new order?" Knox smiled. "The same role as everyone else. We'd be one voice among many." Thorax, the 4-armed former consortium warrior, made a sound that his people used to express surprise. "Humans do. Not wish to rule? You have the strongest fleet, the most advanced technology. You could simply replace the consortium with a human empire." "That's exactly what we're not going to do," Knox said. Empires don't work. They always collapse eventually because they're built on the idea that some people are more important than others. We're going to try something different. She walked to the center of the chamber and activated the holographic display that had once shown humanity the single dead world the consortium was willing to offer them. Now it showed a map of the entire galaxy, with thousands of worlds marked in different colors. Open borders, Knox said. Free trade between all species. Shared technology and resources. Mutual defense agreements that everyone votes on. And most importantly, no one gets to tell anyone else how to live. Prime Arbiter Velox spoke for the first time in several minutes. It will never work. Species are too different. They will fight over resources, territory, trade routes. You will have chaos instead of order. Knox looked at him with something that might have been pity. Maybe, but chaos where people are free. To make their own choices is better than order where they're not. Dr. Chin's voice came through the communication system again. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. President Martinez wants to know when you're coming home. Knox felt a sudden wave of homesickness. She had been in space for over 2 years, fighting battles and making alliances with alien species. But Earth was still home, and there were billions of humans there who wanted to know that their representatives had succeeded. Tell the president we'll be home soon, Knox said. But first, we have some work to finish here. Over the following weeks, the new Galactic Council met in the same chamber where the consortium had once made all decisions for the galaxy. But now the chamber had been expanded to include representatives from over 50 species. Every session was broadcast throughout the galaxy so that any being who wanted to participate in galactic government could do so. The first order of business was establishing the basic principles of the new alliance. No species could be forced to join. No species could be forced to leave. All members had equal voting rights regardless of their technology level or military strength. Disputes would be settled by negotiation and compromise, not by force. Prime Arbiter Velox was offered a position as a historical advisor, but he declined. He chose instead to return to his homeworld, where he spent his remaining years writing memoirs that tried to explain how an empire that had lasted 8 millennia could fall so quickly. The answer, he eventually concluded, was simple. The consortium had never been as strong as it appeared. It had been held together by fear and habit, not by genuine loyalty or shared purpose. When humans proved that the empire could be challenged, everyone else realized they had been prisoners, not partners. Admiral Knox eventually returned to Earth, where she was welcomed as a